Welcome to the Krypton Report podcast. I am one of the hosts, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the Man of Tomorrow, and with me is a full house today, everybody. This is an exciting day. I got my man James Cole, the Superman
Hey,
of Red.
hey, how you doing?
And because it is the 10-year anniversary of Supergirl, we decided to invite two friends of ours, and um, you may have heard their voices here. You may be listening to their show too, but we got Supergirl Radio in the house. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Hello.
You're welcome. Now, Rebecca, this is our third time, I believe, recording together.
Yeah,
And Morgan, this
you
is
came
our
on
first.
Supergirl Radio one time. I think when Morgan was out on her honeymoon.
Where was
I think maybe.
I?
Yes.
I think you may have been on your honeymoon, and I had to get some people to come hang out
I
with
guess-
me and talk Supergirl.
I guess we'll allow it, I guess.
And I just remember getting this message like, sweet. I was all excited, like, yeah, like I'll go, I'll do it. But I was like, I have to bring them on to talk because their show is celebrating 10 years this year. We are celebrating 10 years this year. We started as a Supergirl rewatch podcast, but it's just kind of more from there. They are an excellent Supergirl podcast to listen to. And I almost got to meet Rebecca this summer, but we kept missing each other at Metropolis.
Oh yeah,
Like-
Superman celebration.
Yes.
Lately I've only been going for a day, and so I'm just like going to everything as quickly as I can, and so things sometimes it's a blur sometimes with Superman celebration.
You
now.
can
So
always
I'm
catch
sorry
her
I
in the
missed you.
Super Museum trying to figure
I will
out
be in the
what
Super
certain
Museum,
things
yeah.
are.
I would just
Googling.
I love that museum and they expanded. I just want to get lost in there. Like I want to go back again when the first time I went was back in 2016 and it was just for my birthday. My wife and I went down there. So it was like in February. So we went through it real slow. You know, there's no rush. There's nobody there. Then this year we went, we took the kids and I'd like to go back like maybe next year, get there like on Thursday or something before celebration starts and just kind of go through it with the kids and kind of like really soak some of the things up more so.
There's a lot of history in there. You just have to sometimes do some digging on your own to figure out what it is. But they do put out new things every now and then, so I'm always discovering something new.
And that's the beauty of it. Is there's so much you're like, oh, I didn't see that before. Especially the old stuff. I think I really like. There's nostalgia for the stuff that like you grew up with. I'm like, oh, but then there's that excitement of wonder and education from the stuff that's there that like anything from the 50s and 60s where it was like before we really had the explosion that
Oh yeah, they have a Superman airplane thing from the World War II era. It's on the bottom shelf, so you may miss it. But
That's
they
crazy.
so they do have some really old stuff that kind of tell the story of Superman. Several years after he's created, he's already in merchandising and kind of propaganda with the war. So that's the kind of stuff that I've learned from the Super Museum is that there is a history that kind of flows along with American history with Superman. So it's pretty cool.
It does, because we have an episode coming up next year that we're going to look at how the mythos of Superman, things that was added to it through its media, focusing on, okay, you had the comics. What did Action Comics actually give us? And then what did like the radio show add to it? Because a lot of people don't realize how much the radio show actually impacted Superman's story.
Flight, kryptonite, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty big stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was Jimmy Olsen also created for the radio show?
It's complicated
remember.
because it's one of those where, if I remember off the top of my head, he's in the comics, but he's just like a newspaper copy boy without a name.
Yeah.
And then I think in the radio show, it's kind of one of those like at the same time. I will be doing more thorough research as I get ready for that episode, but it's interesting. It really is. Like
That's a really cool project.
Well, we're gonna listen to that episode.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. I can't wait to listen.
it's been 10 years since Supergirl the show, and before Mike we were all chatting and I was like, oh crap, we got to talk about this. But can you believe the era we lived in with all that DC TV?
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. There was like a different DC show on every single night.
I mean, there
Yeah.
was, if you include I think, well, it was okay. At one point, there almost, because we had the ones that people forget about, like Constantine was on NBC, like on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dumb
I
And
Thursday
then,
night Friday.
I
and
remember
then
Constantine because it was a running joke on our Legends of Tomorrow podcast that when they brought that character onto the Legends of Tomorrow show, people were like, "Are you guys going to watch the Constantine show now?" And so we would put our percentage of how much we were going to watch the Constantine show. I'd be like, "We're at like 5% now." Like, and then and then one of my co-hosts actually did watch the Constantine show, and we were all shocked. And she was like, "Yeah, it's pretty good, not
it
bad."
it was pretty
It
good. I
it was
remember
decent.
watching the pilot's weird because the
That's what I've
pilot,
heard from everybody who's
but
watched the show. They're like, the pilot's weird.
it's weird because they had a character on there they were going to do a whole storyline with, but then after they shot the pilot and did, they're like, nah, we're not going to use her. We're not going to do this storyline. So like the second episode is really where they start to pick up more of the storyline that's going to carry through. And I bought it because Jania, my wife, and I were going to do like a whole segment on it, and we've got about halfway through the series. Probably revisit it now because before it was like the kids would always distract us, but they're getting older, so it's easier to keep them busy. But you know, we had that show, we had Gotham on,
Oh, yeah.
And
so like
Gotham was good. I really enjoyed
and
Gotham.
and it's another one of those, and we'll talk about like every one of the comic book shows had a point where it kind of plateaued, and then it has the real hard roller coaster.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. There's the highs. You start out the highs, and then you experience the lows, and sort of the middle grounds.
Yeah, every Arrowverse show I think had that sort of peaks in season 2, season 3, and then you just have to like ride it out. You just have to
And
try
then
to get to the
That
end.
you
that
you hit
second
the,
hill
you
is
hit the
never
top.
as big as the first one, but
Yeah.
there's a
You're
couple
gaining
more.
you're gaining momentum, but it's down. It's downhill.
and that's like off the top of my head, I think Arrow is like season 1 and 2 is so good.
Yeah.
3
Oh,
was
yeah.
you're trying to be Batman. 4 was
But they
okay,
killed
and then
Laurel Lance in season 4, so that's
yeah,
already on my crap list. Yeah.
and then season 5 was good, and then after that I was like and it's
And then
like
it's like, what's going on?
sometimes it's fun to run an experiment with a show where you watch the pilot then watch the finale,
Mm.
There, I
and
feel
Arrow
like
does
there was
not work at all.
oh
Because the
that
pilot
sounds
and then the
amazing.
finale are completely like, what show is this?
There was a podcast that did that, and I can't remember what it's called. But I think it was like a TV critic who got like celebrities on, and they watched the first and then the last episode of
Amazing.
TV shows. And I've been meaning to listen to them. And I think there's one episode. This is outside of what we talk about, but like there's one episode where they do like the first and last episode of like Gossip Girl with like John Hamm. And I just feel like that's got to be incredible. That's
That
got to
would
be
be
a journey
interesting.
John Hamm never expected to take.
was it last year, James? I had a thing 2014 or 2024 for the 10-year anniversary of Gotham. We watched the pilot and then the finale.
Yeah.
But the finale of Gotham is so weird because the finale of Gotham is like a pilot for a show we never got.
He
You
becomes
know, like
Batman. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
you know, and then you think about something like Superman and Lois, because of how they structure that show and the team and everything. You watch the pilot and the finale, they're kind of beautiful together.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because the way that show starts with the narrative, and then it ends with his narrative. It's very bookended.
Yeah, I don't
So
know that you could do that with the Supergirl TV series.
no, and once again, and
the series finale of Supergirl is
I mean, you're
is
going on
quite right.
some kind of journey if you just do a pilot finale, but I don't know that journey is going to make a lot of sense to you.
It's a lot of totems.
so
Like,
here's
whoa, why
here's
are they
my
lizard people?
my question is to you: where do you think? And like we could talk about this, but like Supergirl, pulling it back to it specifically, where do you think it really started to lose its magic, its way? Well, like around what do you think of, an episode or a season?
So for me, I think the first three seasons are pretty strong. I think season 4 things start to get rocky. Like that's like the roller coaster. Like you're like, And then starting from season 5, I think it's like it starts to go downhill. I mean, season 5, I was skimming through the Netflix descriptions of the season 5 episodes to kind of like remind myself like what happened in that season, and it reminded me that the season, because of COVID, ended up getting shortened, and the finale ended with like a kind of a cliffhanger of like who is behind Leviathan, and then they came back the next season, they're like, no one cares about that.
You will
We're
never
just,
know.
we're just over it. And I feel like at that point, that's when I realized like, oh no, like this is not going to be like the triumphant swan song last season that I had hoped for.
Because it was
Yeah,
the
season 6 felt very, very like 90s TV, like Power Rangers. It was all contained on sets, and just used all the special effects they could. It
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 was like a
seemed very low budget.
it was a 1-2 punch because you had Melissa's pregnancy, the COVID restrictions,
Yeah,
and
tough.
wasn't it one of the last ones to come back and
I
finish?
I think it was. I mean, I have a lot of like sympathy for the different hurdles that they were trying to dive over in terms of like making that last season of the show. But unfortunately, I can sit there and watch something that's super low budget and be like, okay, that wig is wiggy, and still really enjoy the actual story. But I think that the problem was that the story was also not good.
Yeah,
Most
we
of
got
the time.
we got to interview Ozzy Tesfaye sort of during that time. I think during season 6, and she was talking to us about how they would write an episode and then have to do all these rewrites, and so everything was
Mhm.
written many, many, many times, and so they had to figure out how they were going to do the season. So that was very difficult for them. So I do have some sympathy for them because they did have some hurdles there. I think for me, I remember, Morgan, when we talked about the end of season 3, because the showrunner shift kind of happened at the end of season 3 because Andrew
Yeah.
Kreisberg had some issues that had been made public. And so the new showrunners who ultimately took over the show sort of came in, I think, at the end of season 3, and you can tell something had shifted. And I remember going, season 3 I felt like this was going to end differently, but it was still good.
Yeah.
It ended well. But then I think, to Morgan's point, season 4 had some ups and downs. When Lex Luthor came in, it kind of perked back up a little bit. But the problem for the Supergirl TV show is that it didn't quite know what it wanted to be. It wanted to be like this sort of topical show that had a lot of politics that were put into it. And then every now and then it would become a comic book show. And it'd be like, oh, this is a different show that I have more interest in. And so then when you get to season 5, that's where I would agree. The season 5 really kind of it started to repeat itself by that time.
Season 4 is hard for me to like throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing, because it gave us a lot of like good characters. I believe that's when we got Dreamer. That's when we got Brainy, I think. So
Brainy came in
or
season
did
3.
okay,
Yeah.
Brainy came in season 3, but like, yeah, so we got some good stuff. And as you said, like the Lex reveal at the end of season 4, I remember being like really strong and being like, okay, this is really like pulling things together. I feel like there was a lot of good elements in season 4, even if they didn't always work. But I felt like by season 5, they tried to do that same Lex reveal all over again.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, are we just out of ideas?
No, it did feel like that. And my problem is, and you see this sometimes with shows, is they get a character. It's a really good character, but that character runs its course. But then they're like, oh, we still have this actor under contract or whatever. So then that character's just there. And I feel like that's the problem with Supergirl, the show, is it got too many characters and it wasn't getting rid of any. So it became more of the Super Friends show. And as much as I like the characters of Brainy and Dreamer, I would have been okay with them exit. Like, I can't remember where there was a good point in the series that they could have exited on a high note and then came back later, and it would have been really good for the show. And the Flash did it too, where it's like you get all these side characters you build up and you just don't know when to get rid of characters. And it pulls the show down because now it's not so much about Supergirl or Kara. It's a whole group ensemble. And you're just like, okay, there's too many storylines. Do I really care about this storyline that now is taking up so much time? The Flash like replaced everybody on their team, and I didn't really care about anybody.
Yeah, I think another big problem, Rebecca and I talked about this a lot when we were podcasting.
Yeah, this sounds like an episode of
We
Supergirl Radio
talked
to
a
me.
lot about like how it diluted the focus off of Kara, Supergirl, which is obviously kind of important to us. But I also think it didn't help that not only were there so many characters, and as you said, they never, once a character got on board, that character never left, kind of. But also all the characters by the end eventually were superheroes. Like there was nobody who was like just
That's
a
in my note.
guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like and also they started to like amp up all of the superheroes' powers so that like suddenly Dreamer was doing crazy stuff, like stopping tsunamis and stuff like that. Like
that's right.
you're just like, oh, she can do that. And even like some of the other characters who like became superheroes started to kind of power up, and it became Supergirl herself started to feel a little bit less special and important when she's surrounded by these people who are not, say, equally powerful, but also are very powerful. And I think
Mhm.
towards the last season, I think Alex Danvers was maybe like the final domino to fall. And when she became a superhero, I was just like, sure, give her the blue streak. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. give her the super soldier serum. Who cares anymore?
Exactly. What's it matter anymore?
I mean, when Jimmy became Guardian, I was like, huh. And then his sister became Guardian. I was like,
You're like,
okay.
oh, okay.
And then Lena
Her
became a
mask
witch.
mantle.
So
That-
Right.
oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God,
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I actually almost forgot about that.
I will never forget about Lena becoming a witch.
Lena becoming a witch was like one of my favorite things that happened because it just sort of felt like part and parcel to like, yeah, why not? Anything can happen now. Anything's possible. Sure, she's a witch. I accept that. It's like it didn't even make internal like logic with how like what the show had set up. There weren't really witches in this show. There were Kryptonian witches at one
Right.
point, but like
That's
it wasn't Buffy. It wasn't Charmed. And, like suddenly we're getting like the flashback to like Lena's mom, who was just Lena in a curly wig out in the forest, like sniffing a branch, and you're like, sure, okay.
that's what happens post crisis. Lena's a witch now. Like
Exactly.
instead of taking the crisis and making it, like we're gonna, do something that this episode did that we're gonna talk about. That I love. They're like, we'll just hey, remember that basket of ideas we had, the stuff we tossed out? Bring that back. What we got left in there? We can make this work now. Lena a witch, sure.
Yeah, Rebecca and I used to talk a lot right after Crisis about how I feel like out of all the shows, Supergirl kind of got the worst end of the stick with Crisis. It felt like Supergirl really didn't know what to do with Crisis, and they made some big changes post Crisis, and then a lot of the other shows kind of wimped out on the post Crisis changes.
Yes.
They're like,
Yeah, they did.
it's fine. It's like your son's a daughter now, or your daughter is a son.
Yes.
It's like, you just have like a different kid. It's like no one even cares about that guy's kids.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Supergirl was like, this is like fundamentally different. And then
Everyone loves Lex now.
everyone loves like Lex is a hero. It's like felt like the show really struggled to make those post-crisis changes. And then I was really salty because the other shows were like, her hair color is dark now. That's the big change. You're like, what?
Yeah. The Lex thing was, I loved John Cryer's a perfect example. When he first came on as Lex, was great. But then what happens? Oh, they like him. Let's keep him around. And then the last 2 seasons, you're just like, you wore him down. He lost his edge, and he outlived his welcome. Less is more, people. Less is more.
Especially with villains, like diminishing returns on villains always, I think. And he was such a good villain when he popped up in season 4. And then this season 5, you're like, there's too much of this. And then by season 6, he's like, why won't Nixley look at me? Does she
Yeah.
love me? I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't
that was
care.
terrible.
I don't care about
You
this. at
ruined
all.
another villain who was
Yeah.
actually really good that season.
Nixley started out as a good villain, and then it was the Lex and Nixley show, and it was like, am I supposed to invest in this relationship between these two villains? Like, what are you asking me to do here?
Between human Lex and fifth dimensional being Nixley.
It is crazy. Like, you know, Supergirl, for anyone who may not know, I know we're like into this, but season 1 was on CBS, and then the show got pseudo canceled. I don't know if it ever officially was called canceled. It was just like Supergirl moves to CW for season 2.
That was kind of how it was. I think everybody knew eventually it would probably go to the CW where all the other shows were.
So there's this production, you know, you watch the first season, you can definitely see it shot in California. There's a little bit of a higher production, but I don't think they really lost too much when they moved into season 2. And going back with my original question, I think the first 3 seasons are super solid. It was season 3 that had one of my favorite storylines, which was the John Jones and his father, Marin storyline.
Oh, yeah, that was
Carl
great.
Lumley, amazing. I mean,
I love Carl Lumley.
So watching that season, I was like so invested in them. I'm like, I could watch a whole show of this. So like that was a storyline that the secondary characters were carrying that I was invested in. That was good. Compared to, like I said, later when we get some of these characters, I'm like, I don't care what's going on with Dreamer's personal life or Brainy's. They never really, you're just kind of there. You've taken away from my Supergirl. Like, what's she struggling with? What's she doing? You know, it's like, and then they got rid of Win, and you're just kind of like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we said that they never got rid of characters, but they did. They got rid of Win and they got rid of James. And to be fair, they did never Win. Sometimes they could figure out what to do with, but James, they never knew what to do with. I think even almost going back to season 1, they struggled with that character of like, okay, he's Jimmy Olsen, but he's like cool, you know, he's cool. He's not your mom's Jimmy Olsen, he's James. And it's like I think that they struggled so much. That's why he went from, you know, being a photographer to like Guardian. Now he's a superhero. And it's like, I mean, okay, but it feels like he's kind of not the same character anymore. Why does he have to be Jimmy or James Olsen? Like, it could have just been another guy.
It would have been interesting if he had been this character just in maybe the first season, and it was his arc was going from Jimmy to James.
Yes.
So his arc was, I'm coming in as like, I got a new job. I'm coming in as Jimmy Olsen, but it's about redefining who I am as, you know, I want to be James Olsen. I moved here to be taken more serious, to not just be the lower guy. And then like he runs his course. And then he departs. And I think that's the problem is, you know, the core characters we started with, they left and were replaced. But I didn't really care a lot of times with who replaced them. You know, did you guys
think that sometimes they were trying to make characters happen that sort of never happened at all? Like, as much as I actually enjoy Dreamer a lot, and I liked Brainy, I did feel like sometimes the focus was too intense. But there were some characters that they were trying to make happen, like Andrea Rojas.
They really stuck with Andrea.
Like William Day.
William Day. My God, I wanted him to be Doomsday, like, because I wanted the Krypton callback.
Yeah, he was Doomsday on Krypton. Yeah.
So I kept James and I made so many jokes. We made so many jokes that like he is actually like Doomsday. Like,
actually,
I was like,
he's the most
kind of went the Smallville
character
route, little werewolf type situation going on.
Well, at the end, they just something gets activated in him, like, and he just goes full Doomsday, like Rage Monster Doomsday.
Great. That makes me sad. That makes me upset now because I'm like, oh man, what a good storyline that would have been instead of the storyline he actually got, which is that he got really into baking.
And
Yeah.
then he was a terrible
and then he
babysitter,
wasn't a good babysitter, and
and he
then
was murdered.
R.I.P. But yeah, they clearly like they introduced him to be a love interest, and then they were like, no one wants this, and then they just kind of stuck around. Like sometimes he would pop up in an episode, and I'd be like, "You're still here?"
Was it crap? I know that the original casting of Adam was wrong, and we won't go down that wrong. But like Grant's son being killed by Toy
I
Man.
forgot that happens.
Yeah,
Could have been a
her
really
ex-husband was
Yeah.
the guy who played Adam. Yeah,
yeah. So we could have killed him off brutally, and that'd been fine.
I'm surprised they didn't do that. That's a missed opportunity, actually.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of not trying to like, but the worst. Oh my god. Okay, how big they hyped up the introduction of Red Tornado
Mm.
and how just perfectly bad Red Tornado looked when he first showed up. It really was just a dude in a costume that did not look good. Do you remember what? Like-
Season 1, Red Tornado.
Yeah,
Yes.
red-faced. Yeah,
And that's when they had a budget, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually really like that episode. It does a lot for Kara and
No, I like
Supergirl as
the
a character.
episode.
But I
But
mean,
just-
I can understand the effects not be, but for a TV show to try to attempt Red Tornado, I think the effects were pretty good. The only problem is I kind of wanted him to be portrayed as a hero, but I think some of those episodes, while they're not $200 million budgets, I think for what they attempted to do, I thought was actually pretty good, and it forwarded the character of Supergirl along. So I can't hate it too much.
Oh, I love the episode. It's just the way he looked. Because then later, Red Tornado comes
Yeah,
back
even the
in
wind
CW
was the wind
as
effect was fine.
it's just a CG creature. There's so much stuff that happened in the CW shows that I forgot. Like just going back little bits, I'm like, oh yeah, that character wasn't here. It's funny because there's not even a line of dialogue about what happened to Maxwell Lord. Like, like there's not even when Lena shows up, Max left for another city.
He's
That
like,
means some-
I'm not leaving LA. So
But I'm just give me some dialogue. So today we chose to talk about the 100th episode. Basically it's a version of It's a Wonderful Life kind of thing with Kara, and it's called It's a Super Life. And what I alluded to earlier, my favorite part is Mixie shows up, and it's played by Thomas Lennon. And I love this guy and like everything he appears in. Except Reno 911. I don't know why. I just didn't like his character. But like everything else he's in, I love it. But I love that the first thing he says was, "Yes, I made myself look like that and act like that. I was wrong. I just took that form to impress you." I loved it because it recognized the content. It recognized that they'd already used Mixie, and that Mixie was horrible. He was suave. I'm like, what is this guy? And that was my favorite because it was like, we're going to acknowledge that, yes, this character has been used and this is completely different. And I appreciate that continuity there.
Yeah, I think what It's a Super Life does really well is it acknowledges the history of the show and goes back into some of those moments and is pretty faithful to them. So I liked Mr. and Mrs. Mixyz-Pitalik, the season 2 episode written by one of the great Supergirl comic writers, Sterling Gates, wrote that episode.
Right.
One of the writers on that episode. So I liked the first version of Mixie because the first version of Mixie was he was the annoying kind of Mixyz-Pitalik, the one you need to get him to say his name backwards because you need him to go away. And so I liked the way that they portrayed him in that. But I think Thomas Lennon brought something new to the character and something more whimsical to him. And I think having him in this sort of role where he's trying to make up for his bad deeds is kind of an interesting way for him to be paired with Kara. And so I think the way that they acknowledge that and the way they explain it and the way Thomas plays it, where he's like, oh, I really miss that hair. Those are things like that, where he kind of plays that up as if he was that guy. And so I think the way that they wrote and portrayed him, I think was a really good connecting point to the 3 seasons before. So that, to this episode's credit, is pretty good.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I thought
not only that, he's got that newspaper montage where he's got the old radio show voice going on, and he calls Kara a party pooper.
I like that he
And
had
they
like
go
the
through so
little
many
microphone too, like the old
Yeah,
timey
yeah.
microphone that he's
And
talking
they
into.
talk about so many different points because it was all the way back when Lena showed up. It was at the very beginning, so everything since then, even bangs are
Yeah, the
in high
bangs was-
demand after she gets a new haircut.
Yeah,
I'm just
the bangs are very noticeable in this episode because we have a sort of a thing that we call working it or wiggy, where we talk about the wigs of the CW and especially the Supergirl TV series. And in rewatching this episode, I was like, the bangs were a mistake. Because when you watch the original scene where Melissa Benoist has this kind of like princess hair as Supergirl, and I loved it so much. She had all these curls, and then they try to recreate it with, she had the bangs as season 5 Supergirl. And so they had to use a wig to try to make it look like that previous episode, and it just doesn't work. So it did make me miss those early season Kara curls.
Yeah, it'd be
Some
funny.
of
They would
her
be
hair looked horrible in this episode.
they would be watching like the old scene on the it was like Mixflix or something.
Yeah,
Mixflix,
Mixflix. Yeah.
Mixflix, yeah.
And then they would go into the scene, and immediately, and this is not a knock, immediately the scene would look cheaper, and
Yeah.
that's how you knew it was season 5 and not like season 2 or season 3. It's like, oh, the budget's rough. But also, I think one of the things that made it look cheaper was the bad wig that she was constantly having to wear to cover up the bangs, to cover up the fact that she had the bangs now and the hair was different. So you could really, I was like, something just feels off about this scene. I was like, oh, it's the wig. It's
definitely the wig.
It's always the wig.
They try to sell it, to Melissa's credit. She really
Yeah.
tries to sell it.
Do
She was
bangs
working
ever
it,
work?
but it was wig. No, you know what? You're a very, very lucky people can pull off bangs. But I tell the vast majority of people, if somebody's like, I'm thinking about bangs, I'm like, don't do it. Just don't do it.
I want to point out something I just noticed that's kind of nerdy here. So James, my co-host, Rebecca, Morgan, her co-host. Rebecca and I both have microphones with pop filters, while James and Morgan both have headphone microphones.
Oh,
I need something to prevent the B's and the P's from popping. So
I find it very fascinating.
Ah.
Nerdy. Have either of you ever watched the Superboy TV series and seen the Mixus Pitalik from the Superboy TV series?
I have. We at Supergirl Radio have done a character spotlight on Mixie. So if you want to listen to that, we go through a lot of his different interpretations, Super Friends, Smallville, the Superboy TV series. And actually the Superboy TV series, I thought, was pretty faithful to Mixes Pitalik in terms of his costume and the way he was used. So surprisingly, the Superboy TV series, has good episodes and bad episodes, but I thought the way they used him was pretty good.
Mixie and Bizarro are probably the two like Superman villain-esque characters they did the best, that they really got. We don't like to talk about the Smallville Mixie. And I'm very surprised that they never found a way to bring him back in Smallville. Because, Smallville did a lot of like, oh, we kind of did this, but we could, redo it later on down the line or whatever. I'm very surprised they didn't do an actual real Mixus Pitalik episode in that series.
Yeah, they tried to make him more sort of real world in Smallville. The only thing I really like about that episode, I forget what it's titled. It's season 4. I know that. But that Mixes Pitalik forces Clark to be in 2 places at one time, and so he has to figure out how to do that. So that's the cool thing about that episode.
Yeah, the favorite parts is he throws the football, then takes off to the locker room, pushes Mixie to free Chloe, then runs back onto the field to get tackled. Like, yeah, it's a great scene.
Cool.
The Mixie in Smallville, I was trying to remember.
Jinx,
he was
right?
like, he was
Was
like
that
kind of,
Jinx,
he's
yeah,
like kind of sexy, right?
Oh
He's
yeah,
like,
he was sexy Mixie.
I'm as Mixie often is. I mean, every like villain or different character that they introduced in Smallville is like, it's this character but sexy. So I don't know why.
Well, that whole show was like turn it to 11.
So true.
It's no Howie Mandel. from Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's the
can't have it all.
CW. Nobody on the CW is like a normal person. They're all like
Yeah.
supermodels and
Until you get to Thomas Lennon, then we're like, hey, and Chad Lowe. We're like, all right, regular looking people.
but that's 2020. That's like
It is
that's
crazy.
nothing from 1995 through
Oh yeah,
through
the early 2000s, they were
2019.
like, everyone's got to be so hot on this network. That's how we're differentiating ourselves.
Yes, pretty much. You're watching it like, these don't look like. So my wife, we introduced the kids to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We watched the pilot, right? She wanted to watch it. And we're watching it, and I was like, okay, kids, it's low budget, it's 97. And like there's the scene where like Cordelia's like walking in the hallway talking to Buffy, and Sayla goes to me, Dad, how old is she? Like 30 something? And I'm like, I was like, no, Sayla, I was like, in the late 90s, like they used 20-year-olds and stuff to be teenagers. And I look it up, I was like, oh snap, she was 26.
It's so funny that
I
you
was
mentioned
like,
this.
It was hilarious. And my daughter's like, she looks too old. Is she the teacher? I'm like, oh my God.
It's so funny that you mentioned this because I have just been started rewatching Buffy with my husband who never watched it. So we were watching the first season too, and I had that same thought in my mind. I was like, wow, Cordelia looks so much older than I remembered her being. And I also Googled, and she was 26. And actually, the woman who played Jenny Calendar was like either the exact same age or like 1 year older. So like you had the teachers that were like basically the same age as the students. In the in the 90s, like you would just have like a 35-year-old playing like a 16-year-old. It was like when Tom Welling was like getting a little bit older and he was like, I'm just 18. How do I know better? I was like, sir, you're 34.
But we're like, he's Kryptonian.
It's fine. It's fine.
But it's funny because like I want to direct a play like at my local theater. I was joking about where we get all middle-aged people to play teenagers.
Sounds amazing.
Like I was like, I want to do like a high school based play, but we're all middle-aged and we don't really try to hide it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I turned 16 today and I have like a gray beard and all this. I look like James. Like today's my 16th birthday. You know, like I
play the youngest character.
Yeah. He's the freshman.
Exactly.
I think they did that in I can't remember what the comedy was, like Wet Hot American Summer or something, where they're all like in their 40s and it's like, here we are at like high school summer camp. And they just like don't address that they're all way too old.
That's the beauty of it.
It's amazing.
But this episode, I liked how we saw like the core dynamic of the show from season 2 on was around Kara and Lena. And I liked that because Lena isn't a one-to-one Lex character. You know, Lena has a lot of history in the comics of being Lex's daughter or his sister because comic book writers suck and can't decide which one. But it's not like, oh, we're just going to use female version of Lex. Lena has her own dynamics. And I like that this episode was showing like sometimes in life, like there is no right place to do something. Like, you know, the whole wrestling her with the idea that, oh, when should I have told Lena that I was Supergirl? How would that have played out? And every time someone happens,
usually died.
Someone died.
A lot of death. Yeah.
Someone died or hurt. And like, there's the one timeline that it works out really well until, you know,
and then everyone dies.
Yeah, like,
and everybody she ever cared about dies.
And
all killed by Agent Liberty and his people.
Exactly. You had good old Sam Witwer go crazy, and you know that's what he does.
He's a great bad guy, though.
Oh, he is
a villain.
He's got to play to his strengths, and he's a really good bad guy.
He's that sympathetic Batman, that bad guy. You're almost like, I get you. Like I feel for you. I'm in.
Like,
oh
but
snap!
He feels sad.
You just murdered a bunch of people. Man, it's okay, buddy. We'll forgive you. But I like that whole dynamic that, you know, the one time she tries to not be there, she's not there to save Lena, and Lena's life goes down. So she has to live with the consequences of when, you know, her and how it played out. and it really makes you like I've joked before, like my best friend came like, hey, I have superpowers and I just didn't know what to tell you. Sweet, thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Like, because the rational brain is there's that one point where like, okay, you have to build the trust to tell somebody, then you're trying to find the time, but then it's been so long now it feels weird that you haven't told them. And I just feel like, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
Could have told me sooner,
I
but
think for
it's cool.
For Lena, it's a different story because at the beginning of season 5, when she kind of already knew that Kara was Supergirl, but Kara ends up telling her. It is a little bit heightened because Lena did murder her brother for them, and so that's part of her anger in that moment is like, I tried to kill my brother for you, and this is this is what you're doing.
Unsuccessfully.
He resurrects during crisis, but that's something that I think is kind of the thing where Lena is upset. And I do agree with you that in a large part of the dynamic of the show is the Kara Lena relationship, which is actually pretty faithful to Silver Age Supergirl, where Lena is Linda Danvers's best friend. They're like really good friends in the sort of early era of Supergirl. So I really enjoyed that, and I think it makes sense in this episode that it's kind of in the sort of the maybe middle to kind of late part of the season. They're really making that storyline that starts in the first episode of season 5 sort of really come to fruition there. So I think they did it really well in terms of that dynamic.
Yeah, I think for Supergirl, the two most important like relationships to Supergirl is her sister Alex and then Lena. I think those are throughout the course of the show are the two relationships that they go back to the most. Like other characters kind of come and go, but those two are consistent. So I really liked them doing the 100th episode as they were in the middle of this like Kara Lena, Supergirl feud, to go back and kind of do it. And It's a Wonderful Life episode about like, well, when could she have told Lena and things would have turned out differently?
I like it because like I made the joke earlier, like it's almost like a clip show, but it's not. Like there's some shows that do that. We're like, oh, we'll find a way of recycling footage from the past just because to fill or whatever, or to make you nostalgic for the show.
Remember that time?
Yeah. And then some of the other CW shows, like when they did their 100th, wasn't that strong. And like Arrows was what, part of Invasion or something, I think, if I
Oh, it might
remember
have been.
right.
I'm pretty sure it was a heavily focused Arrow episode. Lots of
It was
past stuff in that one. I think it
but it
was.
was
I think
part
it
of
was
a cross.
Invasion.
Yeah, and I felt like when this one hit its 100th here, I liked that it was kind of small in the sense of it's her and Mixie kind of watching it, but we're jumping around throughout parts of the show since season 2 about the Kara and Lena dynamic, and it was cool how we saw like Rain, we saw Monel, which
Well,
throwing
yeah,
this
that's
out there, I hated Monel's name. Okay, like it's one
He
of
was
the
born
things.
on a Monday.
Yeah, but they
But they never
never
talk about that.
they never address the reason why his name is Mon-El. Like he was given the L by Superman to be part of his family because of, like you said, the Monday. Like, and this, like, oh, he's a Daxamite prince, and his like, but you don't call him an L. Like, no, like that should have been like his name should have been like Mon or something. Like, no, like it just made me mad. But it was cool to see him again, in the show. And
He actually had one of the best lines, in my opinion, of this whole episode. He's talking to Kara about the whole Lena situation, and he tells her, "You deserve the same compassion you show others." And I thought that was so good at the time, and still do, just because Melissa Benoist's Supergirl, especially this version of Supergirl, she was so good and she was so compassionate, especially to all the villains that she came across, to to the people who maybe did some bad things to her, even if they weren't villains, but they did something to betray her in some way. She was so compassionate with people. And sometimes I think about that with myself too, and not to put myself in Supergirl shoes, but sometimes, if you're not willing, like sometimes you might be willing to share or show grace or compassion to other people, but maybe you don't have that compassion or grace for yourself. And so I really appreciated that someone said that to her, even if it was Mon-El with the beard. I was glad that someone told Kara that, because I think she as a character needed to hear that, because she's shown so much grace and compassion to so many characters on the show. So that was actually one of my favorite lines in the whole episode. And even if it came from Mon-El, I think it was a great line to be delivered.
Yeah, I like that one
that
a
was
lot
one
too.
of my that was probably my favorite scene of the whole episode as well. And his suit has always looked better that way than in the Superman style when they had it on Tyler. But
because
and
they tweaked
being the
his with better boots and better belt.
Yeah. Well, and you said it's like a clip show, and in a way it's different, but it's all new stuff. They
Yep.
go back through time, so you get all brand new stuff. So they're actually able to bring back all of these actors to play their characters and play out completely different scenarios. So it was really awesome for them to see them be bringing all of those actors back to do all the different scenes.
Very much a what if. Now, I did like the line where they kind of pull it back around, where they make the reference that Mixie's hat he had lost it, and it had actually gone to the hat from the Elite, and that was actually his hat.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. I was like, oh, sweet.
It makes sense. They both wear
I
bowler hats.
exactly. I was like, nice. And I totally I remember they had done the Elite on Supergirl. I was like, oh
Yeah,
yeah.
season 4.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
see-
remember being really obsessed with the hat because it's a great name. Also, it's like it's showing commitment to an accessory, which I enjoy. And so on Supergirl Radio, I remember we had gone like down a deep rabbit hole of like looking up the backstory of the hat and all of that. And so I remember the first time around watching it and being like, oh my God, the hat mentioned.
Mind blown.
They know what the people want.
More hat.
More hat.
Bring on the hat. It's crazy.
But Thomas Lennon never even put the hat on. He
I
just
know.
reached into it. He never wore the bowler hat.
I would have liked one shot, just one.
Well, he had his hair spiked a little bit, so he couldn't ruin the hair.
I just appreciate that he was snapping in this episode, since we never got Snapper Carr to do that.
He snaps so many times. They had a whole character named Snapper Carr, whose biggest thing in the comics is that he snaps.
Snap Watch still at 0.
Snapper never snapped, but Mixie snapped all throughout this episode.
I liked his magical snapping.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember which show it was. I almost he retcons his first appearance. I almost wish he would have made a reference, like as if, like the Music Meister character. I always felt was more of a Mixus Pitalik instead of the actual Music Meister. I thought it'd been funny too. It's like, oh yeah, and that time that I made you in a musical. Was it my bad? Like I would have loved that, because I love that episode, the musical.
Oh, the musical's so good.
Duet.
And I'm just like, but that the Music Meister he's more of a Mixie character in this. And I would have liked if they maybe would have retconned that and it was him too, just being bored. You said earlier how the characterization of Supergirl with Melissa, I still think she's the best. Of course, she's got the character longer, and I think too many times people rate and look at these character versions and they just go by like how they ended or the last work, and not really go back to how it started, because so many of these shows, I think some of them went longer than they should have. But God, go back and watch that first and second season, even through like before, when it was more focused on her. She is so good.
Yeah, I think I don't think we've had a really bad Supergirl. They've all been different in their different ways, and so I try to think about that as like which which Supergirl is this? Like Helen Slater is very much in the Silver Age Supergirl. Laura Vandervoort is in that kind of Smallville early 2000s, I guess, when, Jeff Loeb would have been big. So there's like Peter David stuff that's kind of associated with her. Some of that stuff from the Death of Superman with Supergirl and Lex. So they all have kind of different eras sort of associated with them. And for me, Melissa, she'll be hard to beat. She was pretty perfect, even if the material didn't rise to her level always. She embodied the character so well, and she knew exactly how to play that character from day one. And she really made me believe that she was Supergirl. So she's going to be tough to beat, but I really have enjoyed watching all of the different versions of Supergirl. So I hope everybody shows them all a little bit of love.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes on long running shows too, like by the time you get to the end, you're like, I know I used to love this character, but now I don't really care for them. And I feel like that never happened with Melissa Benoist's Supergirl, even when she wasn't getting the attention she should have been getting on the show, or they made her do wacky things like throw the hope totem into the sun.
Into the sun.
Into the sun. That's sort of her whole thing. But I feel like Melissa Benoist still really grounded that character, and she always felt like Kara to me. And I think she did such a good job being the center of that show and being Supergirl.
So let me ask you, ladies, how are you feeling about the upcoming Supergirl movie?
I don't want to speak for Morgan, but I think we're both like very excited. I am cautiously optimistic. But Woman of Tomorrow, I think I can't speak for Morgan here, is that we both really liked Tom King's Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic. I personally think it's one of the best comics that it's ever been created, not even just like Supergirl comics. I think it's like one of the most beautiful, well-written comics ever created. So I have high expectations, so I'm trying to lower them in case something happens. But I am so excited
Don't ruin
about
it for yourself.
Yeah. Don't ruin it for myself. But I think Craig Gillespie, I've seen a lot of his films. He's a genuine, really good filmmaker.
Yes, he is.
Millie Alcock is a great actress, so I think she's really going to do well in the part. And I'm really excited about Comet the Super Horse. And if they don't have a Comet in there, I'm going to be so upset.
We ride at dawn. I'm very, very excited for the movie. Like Rebecca, I absolutely loved the comic. I do feel like it's one of those ones that is so good that you can give it to somebody who's like not really into comics, and I think that they would still really enjoy it because the art is so beautiful. The story is pretty clean, and it's like you don't have to have years and years and years of back knowledge to understand like this 8-issue run, which I think is great. Kind of leads itself into a more of a closed narrative like a movie, and I think from what I've seen Million, and even just like the couple of seconds that she popped up in the Superman movie, she looks great. I think that she's going to be a really fun Supergirl and a different twist on the character, not really the Melissa Benoist version, but more like the character that we see in the comic, who is like a little bit has a little bit of a rougher edge, is a little bit more lost in her like personal life, and I think that'll be really interesting to see.
And that's like what I told my daughter. Got really excited when she showed up in Superman, and my wife, and my mother-in-law were like, well, that was weird. I was like, it's like, yeah, but like it's setting up her arc of being, this personality that she has, this more, because he even says she likes to go get drunk on other planets and stuff. Like it sets up where she's going to go and the journey she's going to take in her movie. So I'm like with you, like I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful because I did not like the Supergirl that we got in the Flash, but she felt, I don't know, it didn't feel like Kara completely. And it was weird. Like she wasn't bad. Like I would have not minded more with her, but now I feel like we're getting more of like the true characterization on film, because Supergirl has done so well on television, and Helen Slater's movie, it has its moments. I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's an interesting. I had actually not seen it until a couple of years ago when we watched it for the podcast and we did like a
we should
pro
mention,
con.
yeah, we did a debate about the movie.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
Morgan
I
took
put together
more
a PowerPoint slide about
yes.
I took more of the con where I was like, it's not a good movie. I enjoyed it though. I want to go out and say I enjoyed it. I will watch it again, but I think it's like a high quality film? No.
I have a lot of questions about that movie,
I came at it with
like the
a lot of
logic.
questions.
Yeah, the thing about the Supergirl movie with Helen Slater is it's pretty faithful to the Silver Age. So that's how when I talk to people about it, I'm like, you have to understand they're pulling from the Silver Age comics, which were a little bonkers. And just to talk about Sasha Kaje, I think she did well with what she was given. But I think the reason that she doesn't feel like Supergirl is to my great disappointment when we watched the movie, because Morgan and I actually watched that movie together. Is that she basically was just female Superman. She had Superman's suit, she had Superman's storyline with Zod, she had another Superman storyline from the New 52 where she was being imprisoned and she was very skinny and not fed well. And so she basically was just a female version of Superman and not really a Supergirl, even though
Mhm.
her name was Kara Zor-El. So I think for me, that's why she doesn't feel as Supergirl-ish in that. Although I will say one of the things that make her Supergirl is that she gets killed, she dies. So that is something I guess you could say would be an
Yeah.
homage to Supergirl.
Like,
She
oh
gets killed
yeah,
a lot, actually.
I'm very surprised we didn't get like Batman or like the Flash holding her in the crisis
Yeah, that
pose.
does seem like a
Yeah.
misstep.
You know, like I'm very surprised we didn't get that.
For all the times they killed her in that movie.
Yeah,
At
just
least,
one of
at least
them.
once. Yeah.
Could have done her a little bit of justice.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
But you're right. You know, and that goes back to like something when this show was announced. James and I were talking about it, like the way they were setting up Supergirl. We're like, are they going to give us Supergirl correct, or are they just going to try to do Superman with her? Because you know there wasn't a Superman in this universe at the time. We didn't know a whole lot. They were putting her at Catco Media. And I think in some ways there are certain beats where they kind of did make her Superman-esque, you know, by using a lot of his storylines and just making it for her. But they did find a way to keep her.
Yeah, with the early seasons, actually, they're actually pretty faithful to Supergirl comics. I remember the showrunner in season 1 had a picture, I think, on Instagram or one of the social media platforms that had a lot of the Sterling Gates Supergirl run in the picture. She had read those books, and you can see it through season 1 with the Silver Banshee stuff and Bizarro Girl
I
from
like
the
that
Sterling
one.
Gates run.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that she was probably reading in those books, she was like, well, we got to do that. That'll be great. And so Ali Adler, big shout out to her, because I think she really cared about wanting to bring the Supergirl from the comics, which arguably a lot of Supergirl fans, if you ask them what's the best run on Supergirl, they're going to point you to Sterling Gates. So it was great at that time to be able to have like the best Supergirl writer have his stuff be featured in that. And and I think season 2 did some things, and season 3 really leaned into like Supergirl's connection to the Legion of Superheroes, and Streaky was in there. So there were a lot of great things that actually made it. We never got Comet the Super Horse, which we pitched. We were pitching.
We wanted that
Comet
to happen so much, but nobody listens to us.
we had ideas. We could have made it happen, but in those later seasons, to your point, Tyler, they were doing Red Daughter with
Mhm.
with Supergirl, which is Red Sun, is a very big Superman comic. So sometimes they were just like pulling like the Elite is very much so a Superman story. And so I think I don't know if it was the way the showrunners changed, where they just didn't want to do the homework. Like the Supergirl has a lot of stories. She has a lot of villains and a lot of cool things that happen. And so the great disappointment for me with the show is that towards the middle to end, they kind of didn't know what to do with the character. And it felt like they didn't know the character. And here we were podcasting about her all the time. Like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this?
We were
And,
shocked that like Leslie never showed up as a
Les
villain.
Lar would have
or-
been great. Yeah.
The thing
So-
is, like you said, sometimes you get these showrunners who aren't like, okay, for example, I can't remember their names, but they were writers on Smallville who took over as the showrunners. So they had been with the series. And I think sometimes you get these shows where they get new showrunners, but they're not really coming into the series. Like they're not coming up through the series. They're coming from another show or something else, and taking over, and they don't do the homework. What's quick? What's easy? What do you got? I saw this. Let's do a version of this. This is popular. Let's do this. This is new. Sometimes they try to pull from the two more recent comics. Like earlier, you talked about the Leviathan. Like that had just ended in the comics, and it wasn't even that good in the comics.
Leviathan stories are usually not good.
No one was crying out for that to be interpreted on live action.
Yeah, well, it's interesting.
They had nothing to do.
Yeah,
Like, they there was no crossover there with either one of those versions of Leviathan at the time.
yeah.
Well, we were joking on the podcast a lot that like most of season 5's like Leviathan storyline was like corporate like project management.
And
It was
product
like
launches.
and product launches. It was like I was like having like nightmares of like, no, this is like I don't want to have to like watch my superhero show and be like, oh my god, did I send that email today?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to
sorry.
interrupt, Morgan.
No, go ahead.
Well, the thing about Robert and Jessica is that they were the showrunners who came in after Andrew Kreisberg left, and they had been with the show for a while, and I think they just had a different vision for what the show would be. I think the early showrunners really wanted it to be a comic book show. And that was when it was kind of my favorite because I really enjoyed seeing Supergirl's history because this is probably the one chance we're going to get to have a Supergirl TV series. They're going to make a Superman show every 5-10 years.
They'll just keep churning those out.
But Supergirl, we may not get another one. So I wanted to see more Supergirl history in the show. But I think the showrunners just had a different vision for what they wanted to do. And they had 3 seasons to do it.
And I will say, I believe, I don't know how long Robert and Jessica had been on the Supergirl show, but I know that they had at least Jessica had come over from Gossip Girl. So the sort of the background that some of I think the showrunners had was in more of the like teen soaps, which I'm not saying as a deterrent. I love a good teen soap. I will watch them all day, every day. But I kind of did feel like when they came over, there was less of an emphasis on some of the comic book stuff. It did get a little soapier. It got a little bit more like, drama between this person and this person. And it did feel
drama.
Yeah. And it did feel like they weren't like going back into her history and pulling out like aspects that I would have liked to see on screen. Instead we were getting, other stuff that I was like, okay.
All right. So we're going to do a couple more questions and then we'll kind of wrap it up. I don't want to keep you ladies too long. Do you have a personal favorite episode?
God, that's so hard because there are some good ones, especially from those first 3 seasons. I like the Bizarro episode a lot, but there's one in season 1, and I'm trying to remember. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking? It's the one where Alex she kind of goes to Krypton to save Kara. Why am I blanking on this title? It's the one where they basically did redo a Superman story, but they used Kara to do it. I'm for the girl who has everything.
Yep.
So there's a lot of good episodes in season 1, a lot of season 3 episodes that I really like with the Legion of Superheroes. But I think if I had to pick one, I would probably say for the girl who has everything, because it really focuses on Kara's family, her Kryptonian family, Alex, and just getting to see Krypton a little bit. And I think that story actually plays better as a Supergirl story than a Superman story, because Supergirl actually experienced Krypton. She lived on Krypton. She knew the culture. She had people there she cared about. She lived there. So I think for me, it plays better as a Supergirl story. So I think I would probably maybe say that one.
I would say what's funny about that is that story. This is nothing against the great Alan Moore. And the 3 versions, you could argue 4 that we've gotten of that story. The comic is probably the bottom version.
Mm.
You know, I think the animated series version of that, I think with the Superman version at this Injustice League works really well, because if you study it in that version, his Krypton is a blend of Krypton and Smallville,
Mm.
and the characters are merging together. Like his wife is a blending of Lana and Lois,
Yeah.
and then the whole like him having the kid that he actually loves and has to tell him, like, that gets me really bad as a dad. So that version always really gets to me. But the idea of like what you just said about putting it in the context of, if you look more at what the comic did for it, yeah, for Supergirl, and that's I think the part of her character that people miss is that that's her big difference. She lived on Krypton. She knew it. She feels its absence more than Clark will ever, because that was her culture, that was her life, and she
Earth is her alien world.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put that. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
And-
She remembers.
and that's their biggest differences that makes their story the dynamic that it is. So Morgan, do you have a favorite episode?
It's tough. A lot of the early season episodes are really good. The 2 that keep popping up for me for some reason are both in season 3. Midvale, I really loved that episode where they,
It was
they
great.
go and they flash back. The young actors that they got to play young Kara and young Alex are uncanny. They're so good. They have the mannerisms down. They look just like them. It's crazy. And I thought that episode was so enjoyable to kind of learn the backstory of these 2 characters and the sister bond, which I think is really the primary relationship on the show. And then the other one, like the one I remember watching the episode and being like, "Oh my god," is Rain.
Oh
Which
yeah.
was,
Yeah.
I think that was at the mid-season finale.
Yes.
And
The winter finale, I think is what
the
they used to
winter
call them.
finale, and I just remember being like on the edge of my seat, which wasn't always the case with Supergirl. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like there weren't that many times where I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen next, and I like need the next episode. But I remember that episode, and I think Rain overall was one of the better villains that they had on the show. And I really liked her, and I think you can kind of even see in the It's a Super Life how often they go back to Rain as a villain, as like a scary villain, because Rain, I thought, was really an interesting villain and a very frightening villain in terms of like being able to really match Supergirl. So those are like those. I probably would pick Midvale if I could only pick one, though, because I just really like the backstory aspect.
Yeah, Rain's a good one, because that's where Rain kicks Supergirl's butt. Like she defeats her, and Rain actually is a Supergirl villain. So sometimes later in the show, we wouldn't get like genuine Supergirl comic book villains, but Rain was in the New 52, and so it was cool to see how they did Rain in the World Killers. But yeah, Midvale is like, if you had to give me 3 episodes, I probably put Midvale in there. The For the Girl Who Has Everything, if I'm going to go rewatch an episode, I'm probably going to go back to that one. But Morgan has some good choices there too.
So that brings me to my next question: is how often have you revisited the show? Like, because I personally have been like on this, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but like I haven't, as much as I've wanted to go back and start rewatching some, I haven't rewatched any of the DC shows, other than I did rewatch season 1 of Superman Lois with my son because he didn't really remember it. So we were kind of going through rewatching that after season 4. But have you gone back and rewatched the show? Do you watch it often? Because we're gearing up next year for some specials and some rewatches of the show. And I'm actually, after watching today's episode, I'm actually really in the mood to start from season 1 and kind of go through it.
I felt like that too after watching the episode today. I was like, Man, like I miss Supergirl so much. Maybe I would even watch something from season 5. So like it's
Whoa,
like,
Well, at least
whoa!
we picked a good episode
Watch
from
yourself.
season
Watch
5.
yourself. Watch
honestly,
yourself.
you picked. I think you picked the best one from season 5. To be honest,
It is the best episode of season 5. Right after It's a Super Life was the most boring episode of Supergirl. In my opinion, The Bodyguard is like
oh yeah,
the most.
I read the description and I was like, I have no memory of this one.
Yeah, so It's a Super Life is definitely the best one of season 5. It's funny that you mentioned that. Morgan and I, within the last couple of years, I can't remember.
I think
when
last year maybe
we did a Supergirl Radio rewatch. So Morgan joined Supergirl Radio as a full-time co-host at the end of season 1. So we went back and rewatched all those episodes to get Morgan's take on the episodes that she missed, and that was really fun. Actually, season 1 really holds up. It's a great season.
It really does. Every single episode, I remember being like, just like this one too. Surprise! I like this one. This one was really strong. And I remember after we finished that season 1 rewatch, I like was really tempted to just like keep going, like go straight to season 2. But I didn't. So besides season 1, I don't know that I have rewatched any of the seasons all that often, which is funny. But I think it's because also we would watch them and then we would podcast about them. So I feel like my memory of them is a little bit fresher. Although
Mhm.
then you'll ask me a trivia question, I'll get it completely wrong. So
Yeah, I probably would go back and rewatch season 1 through season 3. But usually if I have to like go back and revisit an episode from season 4 to season 6, I'll usually go back and maybe listen to our episode again, just because I think that's a pretty good summation of the episode. But I think I would probably, if I was going to rewatch some stuff, I'd probably put season 1 through 3 on.
Yeah.
That
It's
sounds
and I think part of it has been like there for a while, there wasn't any time to rewatch anything because like just keeping up with however many DC shows we had
oh
at the
yeah.
time, like there wasn't like you'd watch the episode, you'd podcast it, and then that was it. And I think that's where I'm like I said, like right now, like I've been a palate cleanser, and I think honestly, the 2 shows that I really feel like rewatching, um, is Supergirl because I had the only one that else that I've watched was I did rewatch the first 3 seasons of Flash about 2 years ago. Supergirl and Stargirl.
Oh yeah, Stargirl was pretty good. We actually
I
haven't talked about season 3 of Stargirl. We need
Yes.
to do that because Mr. Bones is in there. One of our
Stargirl
favorite
is actually on my list because I watched the first season, and then I kind of fell off, and I really need to catch up on the other seasons. But I really
I
liked that one. I feel like it had a very
it
like
was solid
bingeable. Yeah.
all 3 seasons, and I watched it with my kids, and I made my daughter her own little Stargirl cosplay
Oh,
outfit. She loved it. And I feel like that one, like I've seen little clips people posting. I'm like, you know what? I need to go back to that one because season 3 was really good. And I feel like it was the one show that was really good that nobody got watched. It kind of got just swept up and like caught up with like the changing from the DC universe to being on HBO Max, and then it not being that big of a
well, with
name, and
Post
then
Crisis, everybody losing the interest in the DC CW shows and things like
right.
that. The only thing that I didn't particularly like was changing Henry Thomas, switching out Henry Thomas as Dr. Midnight.
Mm.
Yeah.
Somebody else playing him. He did the voice in all of season 1, I think season 2 as well. But when they did a flashback episode, it wasn't Henry Thomas as Dr.
Oh.
Midnight.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about Stargirl is that for years we campaign. Well, we just campaigned on the podcast. We didn't take it real seriously, but we wanted Mr. Bones / Director Bones to show up on the Supergirl TV series
because the
Of the
DEO.
DEO.
Yeah.
he's
That's a big
like
deal.
when you think of the DEO, if you've read those stories, Director Bones is the director. He's the head of the
He's
DEO.
kind of a big deal. He worked his way up from being a supervillain.
Yeah, so he has a really fun backstory, and we always thought, well, maybe it's just because they can't do him. Like he's a whole like skeleton man. Maybe they can't do him. And then he showed up on Stargirl and was like, well, they did it. They figured
Yeah.
it out.
I
So yeah,
mean,
that's the only frustrating thing about
I would
Stargirl.
have been okay if Supergirl wanted to put like a just like a skeleton and just have him like move around like like an old like in an old timey black and white film. Like I would have accepted that. They didn't
Stop
have to
motion
do
skeleton like Army
Just
of
little puff of
Darkness.
cigar smoke.
I
yeah,
would. I
like
mean,
a spooky scary skeleton. I would have been okay with that.
there's always ways around it. Like there could have been something where he was getting like fake skin put on him. We didn't realize, and after time, we had a character that was there, is the director. But then we had a scene where like he just didn't. All of a sudden, like his skin's falling off, and it reveals that it's been Mr. Bones the whole time, and that he's, And I had a pitch a long time ago that I wanted Mongol to show up. And like you could do a version of Mongol where like he wears like a wristwatch hologram projector, so he would have an actor who is not as big hulking person but a strong actor as like Mongol, but then like reveals himself to be like a whole big war world thing. And that's the sad part is we as fans of the books and of these stories, seeing things that we wish would have come to fruition, but there was so much at one time you're just inundated, and now you're like, oh, there's nothing. And I think it gives you a chance to kind of go back and see some of the things you missed and even appreciate those shows more. But speaking of shows to appreciate, tell us about what's coming up on Supergirl Radio. What can you ladies promote for listeners today?
So yeah, you can check us out on supergirlradio.com. We're on all the socials, X, Instagram, Facebook at Supergirl Radio. The thing that and actually you can also join us live on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern. We usually live stream at youtube.com/DCTV podcast. So we love it when people join us in on the fun. And I think we can maybe talk about this, but Morgan and I have decided that we are going to finally tackle the Peter David run on Supergirl, which is kind of a mammoth task of ginormous proportions. But because the Woman of Tomorrow movie, or at least the comic book, did have some connections to the Peter David run with the sort of the Earth Angel Fire Wings in there. That's from the Peter David run. I was like, we got to do this. And so Morgan's never read it. And so I'm very excited to hear her opinion on it. So we're going to be starting that soon.
I'm so
That's
excited.
awesome.
I'm so scared.
I'll definitely be listening, excited for that, because Supergirl has such a uniquely bizarre history in the comics of, I don't even know how to put it sometimes, because depending on when you pop in, she could be an angel, she could be Matrix, like it's just. But we're going to be tackling some of that stuff next year, and
Awesome.
just kind of going back to her stories. But I want to thank you both for being here with us and chatting.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
And I know, like, I definitely want us to touch base sometime next year on something. I've already have next year planned out. As James has learned, I have the podcast planned out in detail through. I have it in detail through 2028, and then the bones for 29 and 30.
Wow. I appreciate that. As someone who does a lot of Google Docs, I appreciate that.
Oh yeah, my Google Docs are insane.
That's impressive.
So you're ready for the summer of Supergirl that's going to be happening in 2026.
We're already amping up for the summer of Supergirl, which we know that they will promote that way.
They will put it on all the comics.
It's going to be on all the comics.
I mean, you know what?
They tie-ins.
They should. I would love if they really do it correct, and they really, push Supergirl specials, push, I think, some great surprise one-shot books, some great, like a great trade collection, because there are so many, because like you even said in this conversation, we said Kara Zor-El, Linda Danvers, Linda Lee, like, and people are like, huh? Who is she? Like some things that it'd be nice if they had a book that kind of helped tell the story of her comic book history.
Yeah, Morgan recently bought this big collection of Superman books that were tied together during the Superman movie release, and so we're sort of hoping they do something like that with Supergirl as well.
It
I
would
think that
be
would be
disappointing if they didn't.
I think that'd be really cool because I bought it because I realized when we were going through All Star Superman, like I haven't read enough Superman comics, and then they had a whole like collected edition where they had a bunch of the most a lot of the popular runs on Superman in collected form. I think that would be so cool to do for Supergirl, especially because there are so many different eras for the character.
Right. Instead of just saying read Woman of Tomorrow, which I've read, we've never talked about on the podcast because we are now, once they announced that was going to be like the inspiration for the film, I was like, oh, hold off. We'll wait.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually have to buy. I have to buy the trade of that. I have the only issue I've um, read is as I have the whole first run, all of the books, and the only one I've actually cracked open is issue 1.
Oh, well, so
So
you
they're
haven't
all
gotten to the comic
unread.
stuff yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Congrats!
they're all unread. So
You have a treat.
yeah, I wanna. I've been, and I actually put it off because of everything happening. So I was just like, well, I'll hold off on reading it and everything. So
Yeah, I'll be
looking
curious to
forward
hear what
to it.
y'all think about it.
yeah. So you ladies have a good night and thanks for joining us. And everyone, I encourage you to check out their podcast. Check out some back episodes. Like
We
go
have
back
over
and
500 of them.
We
Yeah.
have a
So you have
lot.
a lot to listen to.
go listen to some, like find your favorite episodes of Supergirl, then go find their episodes and listen to their thoughts. I'm telling you, it won't disappoint.
Thank you so
for saying.
much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I love.
Now, time to get into some Krypton Report news. All right, the first thing's up. New York Comic Con happened. Woo! And it was pretty good, Not that James and I got to be there or anything.
No.
But we got a couple announcements. One, Nightfall. What's funny is I had just ranted about not getting any more DC animated movies, and then they announced that they're doing Nightfall as a 2-part animated film. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. Yeah, wasn't it 2-part?
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I didn't see the whole thing. I didn't see the whole Variety article.
I thought it was 2-part. I could be wrong, but I feel like it needs to be, just if you're going
I
to do
think it should
Nightfall.
be. Yeah.
And which is funny because I feel like that's one of those, oh yeah, we should have done that. Like, like one of those Batman stories. Because like it's supposed to be like the Batman kind of equivalent of what was going on when the death of Superman was happening. And yeah, let's see if my reference point here has anything. A multi-part animated adaptation of Nightfall is currently in production. Multi-part, so
Okay.
cool. I'm just excited to start having my DC films back.
Yeah. I mean the animated films have been the Tomorrowverse was a bit lackluster. We haven't had really a whole lot since Crisis. I know Aztec Batman just came out.
And I feel like it came out and flopped because it's so disconnected, being Aztec Batman, and they didn't really promote it and just kind of came out. Like, I'm going to watch it when it hits. It's the first one that I haven't bought that was like supposed to be one of like the big releases.
Yeah.
Like I didn't buy the Suicide anime or the Catwoman anime thing or Ninja Batman because that's all anime based. But this is the first one I didn't buy. Every other one I would buy when they would come out, like constantly. And this one I was like, this is the first one I've been like, I'll wait till HBO. So that's exciting that's coming. We also got that DC will be adapting The Killing Joke into an audio drama with Troy Baker returning to voice the Joker.
Well, that's
okay.
good.
I mean, that's cool, but it's like, I don't know. Like, I'll listen to it. I'll be, it's just like I want some of the other stories to get time. Like, I'm really loving the Dark Victory, like a new episode dropped. I haven't listened to. And I'm really loving the Dark Victory, how we went from Batman Year 1 to the Long Halloween to Dark Victory, which is kind of like a Year 1, Year 2, Year 3 thing. And then we have the ones that they're doing like Kingdom Come, and they did All Star, and then this one probably they're going to end up releasing it on its own, which I'm glad they're doing it. But at the same time, it's like there's other stories. We don't have to just keep recycling the same ones.
Right.
And I mean, Mark Hamill did such an amazing job with Kevin Conroy, even though the first part of the Killing Joke is stupid and you just should skip it and go straight to the second chapter, whatever it is on the
Yeah, something like 40 minutes in.
Yeah.
And pick up where basically the Killing Joke starts as a book.
Yep. Jim was like, how are you going to top that even in an audio drama? But I'll probably listen to that with my wife.
And I mean, Troy Baker, he mostly sounds like a Mark Hamill impersonator anyways. Any time he's done the Joker, you can tell he does a very good Mark Hamill impersonation.
He's just a little bit higher. His pitch is just a little bit of a higher pitch.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see here. Jim Lee made this announcement. DC Comics will not support AI generated storytelling or art. Thank you, Jim Lee. We love and respect you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
They did announce it looks like we'll be getting a Superman and the Authority 7-inch figure in winter of 2025 from McFarlane, it looks like. But I feel like we get these announcements at these cons of these toys and then we don't actually ever see them. Where they come out way later.
Yeah. Well, that's one I'll splurge on. I like the look of the Authority.
That was a good look, It actually matches our hair color, so that's nice.
Yeah, older looking Superman.
Exactly. So DC, I wanted a press release on this, but DC is going to the next level with new series, and all I got was their series for characters that don't get a lot of play. And it just says next level, new series beginning March of 2026 and beyond. And it says Barbara Gordon Breakout, The Demon, Lobo, Zatanna, Batwoman, Deathstroke, The Terminator, Firestorm. And then I cannot read. The last one says something bad. In this picture that I got. So I'm not really sure what that's all about, but cool. And then the one that blew my mind. The one that blew my mind was Homelander, Sub-Zero, Vampirella, Red Sonja to Annabelle to appear in DC's KO. What the
right?
Our buddy Brad messaged me and was like, "Do you see Homelander's gonna fight?" I'm like, what? And I was thinking it was a comic, and then he sent me the thing, and I was like, "Huh? KO
like in KO, like what they're writing about right now?"
I'm like, I'm just kind of like, okay.
I mean, I would love to see Homelander get his ass handed to him by Superman. That would be really good.
Just give me like 20 pages of him getting beat by Superman. Each page is a full page of just him with his being smashed to bits.
Yeah, kind of like the Death of Superman, except for it's just like each page is just a giant splash page of Homelander getting pummeled.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd buy 3 copies of that book. The Playmobil toys that are kind of like the circular version of like Legos, I guess DC is coming to those. We're going to have some of those toys. I'll keep my eyes out for those at the store. And then the last thing to talk about is the Bat Fam trailer. Did you watch the Bat Fam trailer, James Cole?
No.
That's good. No. I had to watch it twice because it popped up and me and Taylor were like, huh? And we watched it. And then I had to show Solomon, and he's like, both the kids were like, why does Alfred's face look like a penis? And we're both just like, what is this? Who is this for? Who are these characters that are part of the family? And I'm going to watch the first episode just because that's my rule, but It's coming in November, so it's kind of neat that they're promoting it like a month out. But I'm really like, okay, you're giving me this when I'm waiting for my Cape Crusader season 2. And the only thing I've gotten recently, there was a post about Cape Crusader season 2 saying that uh the Joker is going to basically be a different version of the Joker.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, isn't every like vision of it was something, it was the way they worded it. I was just kind of like, okay, sure. But can we just get a version of the Joker that's comic accurate? Like,
Yeah. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll be a little more golden age accurate, kind of like the dark version of the one in Three Jokers.
yeah,
Last
like
painful for him and that type of stuff.
I just, the thing is we've had such a every live action Joker and like most of our Jokers have been recently been very like grotesque, like looking styles of Joker. I I really just wish I could have got I love the Jared Leto look as far as the hair, the white skin, and like the red lipstick kind of thing. Um, not the tattoos. I would have loved to see a Joker that's that version. Um, instead of whatever the hell it is that Matt Reeves has sitting in that jail cell that still can be fixed before we actually see more of it. And I'm like, I just want a Joker that makes me feel like creeped out, but
Yeah.
not like in a, but
So, well, kind of on that, since there's nothing else there really. A Joker look that I do really like is the Ice Nine Kills the last laugh track.
see,
Or the laugh track, I'm sorry. The laugh track.
I love that song has been stuck in my head for days. And actually listen to it a couple times today.
Yeah.
He looks great except for the scars on his face. 'Cause
Yeah.
I just don't want like
Well,
cut up.
yeah.
But
I mean,
his
part of the band though, part of the band's motif is the horror based. So that's kind of that look there is and what I actually love about the look of this Joker is there's a strong Batman 89 feel here because obviously they're doing a whole Batman 89 thing. He's wearing the pants. His coat is very similar in the cut, but the coat is actually like um, leather studded almost looking like Heath Ledger's Joker.
Yeah,
Or
it's
I'm
very much
sorry,
an
not Heath
amalgam.
Ledger's Joker, Jared Leto's Joker. And then he's got the scars, but they're more like fresh and wide
Yeah.
open, like Heath Ledger.
Yeah, it's very much a beautiful amalgamation of the movie
Yes.
styles.
And it is a fantastic song. I love it. So catchy.
It is so catchy. It's in my head now,
Yeah.
too. But that's really all I have for news. And now it's time for Peace Thoughts from James Cole.
Peacemaker season 2. Yeah, it wrapped or finale aired. And the finale was a very different beast than the rest of the season,
Mm.
there was a lot of this other world build, and I mean the payoff is fine. I expect, and James Gunn has said as much, that the Salvation planet, as they call it, the Salvation Earth, is going to play a much bigger role in the DCU moving forward. But the whole season was very personal for Chris, and that's how they went out on it. Was the season finale was a very personal story, you know.
Mm.
It was extremely character driven. It was not this big action thing that we were kind of thinking might happen, after.
Which was fine.
Yeah.
The
It was
one
fine. And it was a good episode. It was a really good episode. It was a change of pace, a change of expectations.
the one thing I will say, like I did not say in our initial conversation, I think there was a little too many songs in the final episode. It felt like every couple of minutes there was another needle drop type song.
Right.
So I feel like it was a little much. So
I can agree with that as well. Having multiple songs played live on the ferry or whatever that they were doing. They had Nelson play, and then they had Foxy Shazam play.
yeah, and the Foxy Shazam part was cool because like their song starts playing, in the episode, which is great because I mean that's the same way they did, and they kind of mirror a little bit the way they played. Do you want to taste it in the first season? With it being a big moment and them walking together, but this time they intercut with the band playing and being in there, which is fine, which I thought was cool. But yeah, there's just feel like there's a lot of drops in this last episode. And it almost felt like it didn't feel like the finale because it felt like it brought some things to closure, but slowed some things down and then set things up. So it felt almost like a mid-season cliffhanger than
Yeah, either a mid-season or just like your season cliffhanger ending, meant to draw you back.
yeah. What other thoughts you got for Peacemaker season 2 as a whole?
So season 2 as a whole, I definitely feel like after watching them all, I haven't rewatched it yet, but after watching them all, I feel like season 2 is very much made for like the binge model, getting episode after episode. I mean, each episode it ended as a television episode really should for the most part. Resolved or kind of to draw you back in, and that's how each episode ended for season 2. So it did work as the weekly release model, but I think you'll get a better feel of the story just by watching it straight through. And it was Peacemaker has been a very very personal character journey. They've done a lot of character work this season. Season 1 was him acknowledging his trauma and wanting to be better, and now season 2 is him trying to be better, but with acknowledging the trauma comes having to deal with and cope with that trauma, and he doesn't know how to do that. And as the season goes, more and more things happen. You can't blame him for really feeling broken down about it, since that's kind of the way they take it. But the group dynamic was really fun, and it was really close. I did enjoy Peacemaker season 2, and it does have me very curious as to what salvation is, or rather where it is, and what we're going to encounter with that moving forward.
Give it a letter grade.
Season 2, oh man, I only watched it once. And I, like I said, shifting expectations with the finale. I did find it very good. I just had to shift my expectations on it because I was was expecting something different. I would give it a I would probably give it a B, solid B. I'm looking forward to rewatching it again, so that's good.
And this has been Peace Thoughts with James Cole.